The name of this company is Beyond Tells, and throughout this site and in pretty much every video and article where I discuss poker, I tend to use two terms: behavioral information and poker tells. The reason we call it Beyond Tells is because we are making advancements in the identification of poker tells in addition to expanding people's capacity for interpreting and understanding behavioral information at the table. In order to improve our capacity for reading human behavior, we need to really define and distinguish the ways we describe behavior. At the very foundation of this language is the distinction between what is known as behavioral information and a poker tell. They are two entirely different things, and the more you understand the distinction, the better it can help you establish your reads and play significantly better poker. So first, let's define a poker tell. A poker tell is a behavior that is correlated with a specific piece of information. This information can pertain to the quality of a player's hand, the emotions a player tends to experience in a particular situation, or even the coping mechanism a player uses to hide their behavior. For example, this player will be dealt 111 hands in this recorded session. He will play 36 of them, or 32% of the time. Now, out of the hands he plays, he will place a chip on his cards after checking them 36% of the time, which happens to be one of his tells. In fact, if this player places his chip on his cards after checking them, 92.3% of the time he has a marginal hand. So this is exciting, because now we are starting to dive into the real world of tells. But this is beyond tells, and this statement has a lot of problems, so let's examine it first. First is the very subjective description of behavior. A player places his chip. What does that even mean? My definition of place means just to put the chip on top of the cards. This statement makes no reference to the speed or style at which he does that. This is why it is so difficult to learn to read human behavior via words, articles, books, etc. When it comes to learning, it is difficult to operationally define or articulate behaviors with language. People are generally terrible at this. They say tossed without understanding that there is a remarkable difference in the way you can toss chips. In my previous statement, I said 92.3% of the time. The reason it's 92.3% of the time is because if you use the term place, there is one hand where he places a chip on his cards with jacks, but there is a significant difference because he is very deliberate and neatly places his chip on his cards when he has jacks. Let's take a look at the difference. In the video on the left, he has a marginal hand. In the video on the right, he has jacks. This is a perfect example of how the way we describe behavior can significantly alter our reads. There is a noticeable difference between the way he places his chip on his cards when he has jacks versus when he has a marginal hand. Without using the proper descriptive language, we lose a lot of information. The second problem with this statement is his hand is marginal. Now, is this a hand that he perceived to be marginal or actually marginal? There is a huge difference. If we want to find out if it's actually marginal, we have to distribute all of the hands he plays, come up with cutoffs for each, and categorize and determine what is strong, marginal, and weak based on the sheer performance of the hand. If we want to consider what he perceives to be marginal, we have to take a closer look at the actions that correlate with the hands he has. So for example, limping indicates he thinks a hand is marginal, raising strong, and folding weak. However, we all know that you can perceive a hand to be strong but still call. The third problem with this statement is it's missing a lot of information. How fast did he place his chips on his cards? What was the apex timing of his initial card check? Was there any facial action as a result of checking his cards? The list is really endless. We left out a lot of data. But check this out. This is a behavioral breakdown expressed via conditions, and when applied and merged together with the actual information at the table, you can create amazing reads. Everything you're looking at is real and valid data, but honestly, this probably took over 60 hours to complete. It looks cool, it's very accurate, but this is research, not poker. When we are at the table, we are striving to make statements, rich with observations and context that allow us to make better decisions. When it comes to talking about tells, we don't need to articulate every single thing said, but we definitely need to move away from statements like strong means weak and weak means strong. We should be striving to create statements like, he usually puts a chip on his cards to protect them when calling, but this time he did so very quickly and seemed to press down the chip on his cards. His card apex was also much quicker than normal. He seems to be looking around the table more than usual, and combined with the fact that he has raised 2x when he normally just raises 3x, lends me to believe that he is definitely stronger than sevens, and I see no value in calling due to stack size, so I am probably going to fold. This is a more practical way of expressing tells at the table and is something every single player is capable of if they approach the identification of tells in a systematic and ordered fashion. Also, it's my belief that every single player has some sort of tell. Some just take longer than others to actually identify. They are also found in so many places on the human body, it really is fascinating. I know, you probably have a lot of questions about tells, and I will answer them in time, but I want to move on to behavioral information, which is just as important and sometimes even more useful than the identification of a poker tell. Behavioral information is quite simply information that is deduced from observing a player's behavior. Let me explain further by taking a look at a simple piece of behavioral information. So this player is leaking volumes of information, but let's keep this simple for now and focus on the eyes. Notice how he isn't looking around actively at what's going on at the table? This player's gaze direction isn't a reflection of a very aware player. He is probably only concerned with the value of his cards and isn't even thinking at a high level or along multiple streets. Now you might say, well, what if he's just not thinking in this or aware in this hand? If we were to jump around, we will see that he is almost always like this pre-flop. This is a very simple example of behavioral information at the table. Because of this, we can't make statements like this player probably knows that I never 3-bet, so he's likely to fold when I re-raise him. Now, the problem with behavioral information at the table is not that people aren't aware of it. It's that they don't factor it into their decision-making process. Behavioral information, specifically the order of a player's gaze direction, is an incredible window into a player's decision-making process. For example, let's take a look at these two players. There is a remarkable difference between how these two think about the game, and the ability to identify, understand, and merge that information into your thought process is so powerful. This is a very primitive example of how you can apply behavioral information at the table. Behavioral information can help you identify who to bluff and when. It can help you optimize your bet size to ensure you're extracting max value. In fact, being aware of your own behavioral information can even help increase your own performance at the table. So what's more valuable, a poker tell or behavioral information? It's really hard. At times, you won't be able to identify a specific tell, but a player will be displaying volumes of behavioral information that you can use to establish a significant edge. The reality is the best players are making decisions that are grounded in the context and action of the game, overlaid with behavioral information and the identification and utilization of poker tells. The combination of these two worlds creates a truly deadly player that can essentially hedge risk through establishing edges that utilize these multiple threads of information, allowing to make significantly better and informed decisions at the poker table. Okay, so I hope this video helps separate the distinction and open your eyes to this world of information. And I know this may seem a little theoretical, but if you want some free practical training, sign up for our 3-part series below. Once again, if you have any questions at all, please reach out to me personally, Blake@beyondtells.com.